What's good, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. I'm Vince D'Addario. That guy over there is Brian Driscoll. The OGs are back in the house.
Yes, sir.
It's a Saturday night, and whenever there's a Saturday night show, I'm going to say more often than not, it's good news. So we are here, we are together, and we are here to break down tonight's commitment of Javian Osborne, which just occurred about a half an hour ago. And so here we are to break this thing down. And Brian, this is a big one, man. Like I enjoy watching film, obviously, and you sent me his cut ups and kind of what he's about, and I did my research, and Notre Dame's been in this one for a while, but this is a big pickup. And I know we're going to get into the backstory and everything like that, but kind of the way this one went down just solidifies what Notre Dame is doing on the recruiting trail right now. And then, with Jawan Sider and just all of it, right? I mean, just the continuation is here, the running back position. I mean, this is
absolutely big. No, it's a huge commitment, Vince. I mean, and there's so many different things about it that are big. We'll talk about the backstory, the class impact, and all that. But I mean, look, you're getting a top 100 running back. He ranks as he's a 4.5 star, which is, now in my new grading system, it's kind of a top 35 to top 75 caliber player, 5-star upside guy from Forney, Texas. He's a kid that's already got over 4,400 career rushing yards, rushed for over 2,000 yards as a sophomore, rushed for over 1,200 yards as a junior, was a little bit banged up, but still had 25 rushing touchdowns. His team wasn't as good. They played in the state title game in his sophomore year. They were like 5-6 in his junior year. And so that was part of it as well. But he still got his very talented back, and, just a guy that kind of adds to your profile. He's also not just highly ranked on my board. He's also a top 100 player on Rivals and also ESPN's rankings. I don't see how you watch this kid and don't think he's a top 100 back. I really don't see how there's actually two services that don't have in the top 100. But even there, he's like top 130-ish. I think they're very off, but this is a big-time running back. And it's also dipping into Texas, where it's a state that Notre Dame wants to have more impact. They've been recruiting Texas very hard in this cycle, and they're hoping to add at least 3 or 4 more players from the state of Texas in this class. But this is the first one. This is a big one. And so, Notre Dame once again dips into one of the big money states. Obviously, that's Florida, Texas, California, Georgia. They're making North Carolina priority, but Texas has been a big priority for Notre Dame for the last several years. You just dipped into the state of Texas and got one of the best backs. I was actually watching as I was putting my class impact article together. I was trying to find some other, some camp clips and things like that I could find of him, to maybe use for the show or things like that. And I actually saw a breakdown by a guy that I've known for a long time that used to work for Scout.com. He now covers Texas football. And they were doing a breakdown, and he was talking about how Javian Osborne is probably the number 1 back in the state of Texas. Well, Texas is loaded at running back this year, loaded. And so for somebody to be saying that, this is a big-time player. So, interesting backstory and all that stuff, and we'll talk about the class impact. But the fact of the matter is, you want to close the gap, right? You want to win championships. You've got to be able to go out there and absolutely get the best of the best and beat the best teams. And this was a big-time win for Notre Dame. Big-time win for Notre Dame. Big-time football player that you're getting. And also, I love the fact that Notre Dame has really done well in the state of Texas recruiting running backs in recent years. You had Jadarian Price in 2022. You had 2024. You had Keidron Young. Now 2026, you got Javian Osborne. So now I'm trying to figure out who's the 2028 running back from Texas that they're going to get, because obviously it's 22, 24, 26, 28. Got another big-time running back from the state of Texas. So you add playmakers from that state, Vince, and you're doing some things.
Well, and, when I was doing my research and I was sitting there with my kid and we were watching his highlights and, we were kind of going over it, and I started reading to him his offer list, and I got about 5, 6, 7 schools in, and he goes, "Dad, so he can pretty much go wherever he wants."
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, pretty much. He can pretty much go to any school in the country. Because they all want him, and they've all offered him.
Here's the offer list: just some Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Florida, Florida State, Texas A&M, Oregon, USC, Miami, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Ole Miss, et cetera, et cetera.
Right,
et cetera.
right. Just name a school, and he probably got offered by that school. And if he hasn't officially been offered, if he would have said he wanted to go there, he would have been offered. So
Yeah.
this is a big time. And anybody that watches this film, which we will do in a little while, will understand why all of these schools were in on him. I mean, it's just massive. And what Notre Dame was able to do to get him on campus obviously changed the game. So this is a big one for Notre Dame. Obviously, we were planning on having this show, and so we kind of knew which way it was going to go, but that was not always the case. And so I'm excited to talk about that. So let's jump right into it, Brian. Let's talk about this backstory and where Notre Dame was with him, because for a while there, it was like, oh, Notre Dame's on my list, and that kind of thing. But it really wasn't a two-way street. And so I want you to kind of talk about how it became a two-way street and how Notre Dame kind of jumped the line a little bit.
Yeah, this is a young man that was offered over a year ago. I believe he was part of the Pot of Gold package last March. And they had been recruiting him for a while, and they had talked to him, and Coach McCullough had been down there to see him. And so, he was always, like you said, he was on the list. He was a guy that they were looking at. He had always talked highly of Notre Dame, but there was never any follow-through. There was never any visits. There was never, anything like that. He had been to multiple games at Michigan. Michigan had been this perceived leader for a long time. And it just was a guy that Notre Dame was. I mean, I even said in February, early March, I was like, look, they're still recruiting him, but this is highly unlikely to happen for Notre Dame. I mean, that's just where it was going. But they were able to finally convince him to come on campus. And I didn't think that was going to happen because when Jawan Sider was hired, he never offered Javian Osborne. Coach McCullough had offered him and had laid a lot of that groundwork. And then Coach Sider came on and was able to convince him to come up for a visit. And I said, coming into that visit, I was like, look, this is unlikely to happen, but hey, you got him on campus, you get your shot, take your swings. And that visit was huge for Notre Dame. By the end of his first day, he had told Nick Kramer for Irish Breakdown that Notre Dame might be his leader. And by the end of his visit, Notre Dame had become his leader. And the question was then, okay, great. You struck while the iron's hot. You took your swing, but he's going to go back to Michigan. He made 2 more trips to Michigan, also made a trip up to Notre Dame, I believe, for the Blue Gold game as well. So he made 2 more trips to Michigan, 1 more trip to Notre Dame after that first visit, and it never faded. It never went away. It was always Notre Dame, Notre Dame, Notre Dame, Notre Dame. He actually did a silent commitment to Notre Dame about 2 weeks ago. So this is kind of, we've been sitting on this one and letting it kind of go and letting the young man have his moment. But I'm not going to look. I'll look the visit to Michigan for their spring game, which came after Notre Dame's spring game. You're just like, okay, I know he's kind of silent, but he's taking this visit. Let's see how it goes. And nothing changed coming out of the visit. Nothing changed. And it just goes to show the what Notre Dame is doing. It goes to show that Notre Dame, people will say, well, Notre Dame, is all about NIL. And I'm like, look, Notre Dame made a very good NIL offer to him. But this is not a school in Michigan that's doesn't have NIL money, as we've seen. But it was much more than that. I'm not going to sit there and be like, Notre Dame offered him nothing to come here. That's not true for any top recruit. Every top recruit's getting an NIL package. But it was really just about getting to Notre Dame, being around Marcus Freeman, being in that room and seeing what kind of fit he is for that room. Being at Notre Dame, I've seen different reports that he's like a 3.7 to a 3.8. I've seen it, reported different ways in the classroom. So this is a young man that doesn't just go play football and then just do enough to get through the NCAA clearinghouse. This is a young man that's striving for excellence in every facet. And Notre Dame just registered with him. And obviously they were able to make that big move, but it was keeping that excitement, keeping that energy throughout the last month plus was going to be the big key. And Coach Sider did a phenomenal job of making that happen. Michigan took their final swings at him, didn't get it done. And you knew that they had failed to get it done when coming out of his first Michigan visit post Notre Dame, you started to see the dishonesty from some that cover that team about, well, they didn't really want him despite the fact he'd been on campus 6 times. They didn't really, they weren't willing to give him NIL, blah, 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 blah. You started to see the spin instead of saying, hey, look, Michigan, Tony Alford did a great job recruiting this kid. Notre Dame just had things to offer him that Michigan couldn't or didn't. other than, like you said in thing, they run the ball, and it's not about NIL. So just like every kid Notre Dame doesn't lose, they don't lose because of NIL. That's lazy, and that's basically speaking to the lowest common denominator of your fan base as opposed to being honest. And when one week you're saying they're on him and the next week you're saying they're not, you're a liar. And that's pretty much what he is. And you know who I'm referring to. So this is one where Michigan wanted him. That's why they got him back on campus twice after his March visit to Notre Dame. And Notre Dame was able to get it done. And that's the thing, Vince. It's like, look, we've seen it all the time through the years. Kid comes, loves the visit. They got all the energy, all the momentum, and then 2 weeks go by, a month goes by, he sees other schools, and all of a sudden that excitement is gone, or it's at least gone down a little bit. With Javian, it never went away. It was just always Notre Dame, Notre Dame, Notre Dame. I mean, he's retweeting every kid that committed since then, and it was very obvious that this is the direction he was going to go. And now Notre Dame got it done. But it's one of the most sudden change recruitments of a big time player that I've seen in a long time. We see it all the time with like lower ranked kids, and this is by far their best offer. They go from never heard of Notre Dame to committed in 2 weeks, but not with top 100 kids like this, not with kids from Texas. You just don't see this very often, Vince. And so this was an exceptional job by really the entire staff. Obviously, Coach Sider gets the credit as the lead recruiter, but Coach Freeman was heavily involved. Obviously, Coach Denbrock, the entire staff, the recruiting operation. This was a big one. It's a very big one.
I think it says a lot about what Notre Dame is doing when they can get kids on campus. And that's always the thing that strikes me about Notre Dame, and kind of what makes Notre Dame a little bit different than some other places. They obviously get on kids' radars, they establish relationships, they do all the things that you're supposed to do, right? But getting kids on campus is just different. It's just different when you get on. I've heard it talked about, I used to do a radio show in the past where we talked to alumni and, former football players and, from every era. Right. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, when I got on campus, it just felt different. Like I went to all these different schools, but when I got on campus, it just felt different. And that's the aura of Notre Dame, obviously, but then it's also what this staff is doing when those kids are on campus. Like you can soak up the lore and the history and all of that. And that's important. Don't get me wrong. That's one of the reasons I'm a Notre Dame fan, right? Mm-hmm. But they're doing something different with the staff and with the, the extended staff and everything else to make these guys feel like this is home. Yeah. And we're seeing more often than not when they can get a kid on campus, especially a kid from out of state, from a Texas, mm-hmm. from a North Carolina, from a Florida, when they can actually get those guys on campus, it makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. And this is just in my opinion, this is just a shining example of that. Yeah. And it went a long way to get Osborne in the fold.
Yeah. I mean, look, you talk about that getting him on campus, and let's not also ignore the fact that this was made easier by going 14-2 and playing for national championship. I mean, he talked about it in his commitment video. He talked about, they were just in the championship game, and you see a lot of these recruits talking about, hey, we got there, but we're not happy. We're not satisfied. It's really fascinating to see in the Notre Dame program how much that's fueling them this offseason and it's like they're incorporating into everything, sort of that crankiness that's coming out. It's kind of going into every aspect. It's into the workouts. It's into the spring practices. I hear it all the time about how players don't want to talk about 14-2. They want to talk about 0-1. That was the record in the championship game. You talk about on the recruiting trail, man, we're not happy with how the season went. We wanted one more. And instead of, obviously they're talking about like, hey, we were almost there. But it's just, there's a lack of satisfaction for how the season ended that this staff has embraced in how they're building the team, but also how they're recruiting on the, big time players like this. And so, we said when everybody was kind of panicking a little bit in February and, late February, early March, I was like, look, just take a deep breath. Let's let these visits happen. Because the whole thing was how things went during these visits was going to tell us how the staff was going to be able to kind of get this recruiting operation going. And the visits obviously went extremely well. And that's why they've been able to absolutely be on fire right now with this 2026 recruiting class. I mean, you're getting two top 100 DNs from North Carolina. You got a top 250 receiver from Georgia. You just got a top 100 cornerback from the state of Florida. Just got a top 100 running back from the state of Texas. You got a top 100 offensive lineman from the state of Pennsylvania. You know, I mean, you went and got dipped into Michigan and got 3 offensive linemen from the state of Michigan as well. That Michigan wanted all of them, and so this is Marcus Freeman's version of saying, yeah, we're shopping down a different aisle too, different from what we've seen in the past. We're shopping down the same aisle as Bama and Ohio State and LSU and Georgia and Clemson and teams like that, and they're starting to win some more of these battles. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but you can't ignore the impact of the 14-2 season on that.
I don't want to get too off track, big picture here, but I did want to ask you a question because obviously play on the field makes a difference in recruiting. I mean, that's obvious. Personally, I wasn't sure if the 24 season was going to have this immediate of an impact, like with the 26 class. Like I thought you'd see it more, maybe the 27s and the 20, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, because of the 26 kids, they're pretty far along in their recruitment. You know what I mean? And I didn't know.
It's just crazy to say.
I know.
To say it's freaking May, man.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
no, you're not on, Vince. It's just, I mean, you and I grew up in an era where recruiting was done from December to signing day.
Yes,
like it was 100%. It was done like it was the banquet. They'd have all their top recruits at the banquet in December, and then sign like a month and a half later.
That's it.
And now it's like you offer a kid in April. You're like, yeah, you probably got in a little bit too late. I'm like, what?
I know.
It's not even summer yet. But you're absolutely correct, Vince. I mean, a lot of these kids, you are late in the process. A guy like Javian Osborne, Notre Dame was an afterthought amongst other schools for him. And you're able to kind of jump in and get this one done.
Yeah. So I'm very happy to see that it's having the impact on the 26 class as much as it is. You know what I mean? It's like it's kind of pushing some guys over the top.
I think your observation is very spot on, Vince, because normally it's not that immediate class. Mm-hmm. It's like it has an impact, but not this big of one.
Right.
The big impact is on 27, and we're seeing that. I mean, we've seen tons of 5 stars and highly ranked kids be on campus from far away. Have visited Notre Dame this spring in the 27 class. But to your point, I think what this says was there was always an underlying level of interest. Aiden Pouncey was always interested in Notre Dame. It was how interested. Javian Osborne always had some level of interest in Notre Dame. It was how interested. You're not getting kids who had 0 interest in Notre Dame, and now all of a sudden they're committing. In 27, you're getting some of that.
Right.
But not in 26. And so what you're saying is Notre Dame might have been like 7th or 8th on a kid's list, and then they're jumping up into the top 3.
Right.
And that's the impact that the season is having, and Javian Osborne is one of those players where they're probably in his top 6 or 7. But, that's the season combined with just that push and getting him on campus and just the entire package that Notre Dame has to offer recruits on and off the field is just it's making huge headway. And you're seeing they're now ranked as the number 2 class in the country on Rivals. USC is number 1 with twice as many commitments as Notre Dame. So, of course, they're going to be number 1. But Notre Dame has a much higher
on average
player average. Notre Dame is also now number 2 in the 247 sports rankings. They're ahead of Clemson. They're 20 points ahead of Clemson, despite having the same exact number of commits. And obviously they're rolling, Vince. And and this is what makes it different. And this kind of speaks to the sort of the impact of getting a player like a Javian Osborne. Is Notre Dame's always been in the top 3 to 5. Sometimes number 1 at this point in time in the recruiting process. But it's normally because they have way more commits than like other schools. But you're looking at them now; they've got 14 commitments. LSU has 10, Ohio State has 11, A&M has 11, Clemson has 14, Penn State has 14. So it's not like they're out there just like basically USC is doing what Notre Dame used to do, just kind of outpace everybody with numbers, and they get good commits. They're doing a little bit different now. They're getting more of those higher level pickups, and obviously Javian Osborne is certainly one of those players.
Yeah. So let's talk class impact, Bryan. You mentioned the fact that you were writing that article, which I'm sure is over on irishbreakdown.com. But let's talk about – yeah, I figured, just throwing a little plug for the website there. So Javian Osborne, impact to the 26 class and what he brings and where they're at with that.
Well, there's two ways to kind of look at his class impact. Number one, well, really three. One, we've already talked about. You're impacting the class by you're raising the rankings. You're doing all those type of things. There's a perception impact to this class when you land a guy like Javian Osborne. Don't think that Caden Finley, who's from Texas, and Braden Robinson, who's from Texas, and Tiki Hollis, who's from Texas, and a lot of those 27 kids from Texas aren't looking at this like, hey,
absolutely,
they got a dog at running back and guy from my state. And so that's not going unnoticed, believe me on that. And so that's impact number one. And then you get specific to this recruiting class and the roster. Looking at it from a number standpoint, Vince, I do believe Notre Dame is going to end up trying to take 2 running backs in this class.
Okay.
And the reason why is they obviously have 6 running backs in the roster right now, and they're all really good football players. I mean, you've got Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, Keidron Young, Aeneas Williams, Jabron Payne, and Nolan James Jr. We've said it all offseason. We said it during the season. There's not a deeper running back room and a better running back room in college football right now than Notre Dame's. You have a couple teams that can say, hey, Penn State says, hey, we think our 2 are as good as your 2. And I say, you know what? You got an argument to make. I would personally take Notre Dame's, but that's a heck of a running back room. I'm not going to argue with the Penn State fan that their running back room is better. All right, your guys played very well in that title game. Notre Dame's guys did some things in that title game, that semifinal game, and you got a great room. You got a great 1-2. The difference is who made the big plays for Notre Dame in that game at running back. It was their number 3, right? And then you've got Keidron Young, and you've got Jabron Payne coming back. You've got Nolan James Jr., who's a really talented player as well. But here's the thing. You're probably not going to have Jeremiah Love on the team when this class arrives. You may not have Jadarian Price when this class arrives. You may not have Jabron Payne when this class arrives.
Right.
So even if all the underclassmen, Aeneas Williams, Keidron Young, and Nolan James Jr. stay, you only have 3 running backs. You want 5. So I think that's why Notre Dame, I believe, is going to try to get 2 in this class.
That makes sense.
They've been recruiting that they're going to get 2. All the running backs have been told, from my understanding, that they want to take 2 in this class. And we've seen Notre Dame be very successful with 2 running back classes. And I think that's something that's going to help them from a recruiting standpoint get a second back, because you can say, hey, look, we've signed a lot of 2-man classes, and almost all of them, both guys had success. Going back to the 2013 class of Greg Bryant and Torian Folston. You had the 2015 class of Josh Adams and Dexter Williams. You had the 2000 and there's the Jameer Smith, Sebo Flemister class wasn't a great class, but then you had 2021, you had Audric Estime and Logan Diggs. They had a great year together at Notre Dame before Logan took off. And then obviously you had the next year, you had Jadarian Price and Jabron Payne. That group has both made an impact, and it'd be more if Jabron didn't get hurt. That class would have made an even more of an impact, because everything we saw Aeneas Williams do this year, Jabron's probably doing if he doesn't hurt his knee last spring. And then, of course, you go into 2024 in that Aeneas Williams, Keidron Young class. So now you're 2 years later, and Notre Dame's in a position where I think 2 is going to be the need again. But you need to get impact players. And that's the third part of this. Okay, yeah, it's one thing to get 2 running backs like they did in 2018 when they got Jameer Smith and Sebo Flemister, but are you getting impact running backs? And that's the other part of it. So step 1 down for your numbers. Now you need to focus on your other guys, which we'll get to at the end. But it's also about, are you landing impact players? Because to make an impact in this room, you better be a dude. And Javian Osborne is certainly a dude.
I've got questions to ask you about that next running back spot, but I'll save those for the what's next segment when we get to that. Based on what they're looking for that second back and some things like that. So I'll save some of that, but I've got some questions for you when we hit that area. So we want to dive into the film, Bryan. Is it about that time?
Do we have to? I so love watching film.
I kind of enjoyed watching it, and I'd like to watch it again. I'm not going to lie to you.
He's really good. I sent you his sophomore and junior film earlier.
Yeah.
We'll mostly watch his junior film, but we'll pop a little bit of his sophomore film on too while we're going through it, Vince. But yeah, this is my favorite part. Everybody, and I love watching film just period, but I especially love watching film when we're talking about dudes.
Yeah, I was going to say
Osborne is dude. So
it's a lot easier to watch film when you're watching really good players.
First thing you'll notice here, Vince, is obviously Javian's for Forney High School. They're the black and yellow team right there.
Yep.
Not the tallest back in the world. He's listed at 5'10". I kind of think he's probably closer to 5'9".
I think that's fair.
But when you see him, he's built really well. He's a thick running back in the upper body. He's got a pretty strong lower half. He's not like thick like Kedron is thick, and he's not quite as thick as Jadarian Price. But in a lot of ways, his frame does remind me a lot of Jadarian. Really chiseled upper body, good lower half, very well-built young man. Has the armor on his body, Vince, that you need to be able to be an every down back. Even though he's not the biggest guy, he's built like a guy that can be an every down running back for Notre Dame. And he's a kid that took, I think he had 290 carries as a sophomore. Went for over 2,200 yards. So that's the first thing is this is not a scat back. This is not a kid that's just, trying to make everybody miss. He runs with power. He's got great contact balance, great motor. He's not an easy guy to bring down in space. There's no question. He runs with much more power than you think he would. But this balance right here, Vince, you start talking about the physical traits, that balance is just exceptional. But the frame was the first part you needed to get to. What's that?
His change of direction is very, very impressive. He's able to, now he wasn't at full speed or anything, but he's able to stop on a dime and just make those defenders hug air.
Well, there's a couple things about him. I don't know that he's like a Jeremiah Love burner, meaning he's going to go to the combine and run like a 4.38 or a 4.41. But the comp that I gave to him is Dexter Williams, because Dexter was a 4.58. I think Javian's probably a little faster than Dexter Williams was. But what he has is that first step explosiveness. He gets downhill in a hurry, which is how Dexter was. If Dexter was a 4.5, Dexter was a 4.5 step one. Mm-hmm. And Javian has that. But he has that in two ways, Vince. He has that, number one, if he's running downhill, but he also has that when he's showing patience and he's waiting, and then he can plant and explode vertically. His first step explosiveness is really, really impressive. Yes. And it's not like he's slow in space. You're not catching him. He might not be quite as fast as Jadarian Price, but he's not that far off. You know what I mean? But that first step burst is really impressive. But you talked about the agility. Well, it's one thing to be a talented back, Vince, but you got to fit the system. What does Notre Dame do? Inside zone, duo, and counter. So you got to make vertical cuts, and he can make vertical cuts as well as any running back in the country. And that's what you were talking about. That elite sudden change of direction ability is special. And that's perfect if you're running inside zone where you got to cut back, sometimes bounce, duo where you usually bounce and sometimes cut back. And then that explosiveness when the crease is vertical to hit it. And that's where he reminds me a little bit of Jeremiah Love as well. Because when Jeremiah sees a hole, he is flying through it. And Jadarian has a lot of that as well.
I just love the fact that not only does he get through the line very, very quickly, if he doesn't need to make somebody miss, because he can obviously do that as well, but he gets through, there's clips on here where he just gets through the line so fast, and then he does run away from some people. Again, it's not elite speed, but it's speed enough that he's running away from guys.
Yeah, he's got very good speed. He's just not, he's not Jeremiah Love speed. But look, again, if you're a 4.5 something and you're not getting caught, how many times did Dexter Williams ever get caught behind? He ran like a 4.58.
Right.
And I think Javian's faster than Dexter.
Yeah.
And I remember the 97-yard touchdown run he had. Right. The only person I ever saw catch Dexter Williams from behind was Troy Pride Jr.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that actually. And Troy came from the other side of the field too. That was
right.
That was impressive.
Right. But go ahead, Vince.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say I was gonna talk about that play. That was impressive. But
go for it. He's not dancing just to dance.
Correct.
That's what you're seeing here. He wants to get vertical. He understands. I'm cutting to find a crease, and then when I see that crease, I'm hitting it. He's a very efficient mover. He's not a guy that's just dancing to dance.
He's got good vision, man.
Great vision.
He can see where the hole is going to develop, and then he can see where the defender is going and make him wrong.
Yeah. There's two aspects of having this is what I love about Javian. First of all, that's my one. This is my one pet peeve of his. He's a very efficient runner. He's got very good footwork. There's a lot of things I love about him technically. He puts the ball in just one arm. he is more than any of the backs on the board. He will carry the ball with his inside arm more. And that drives me nuts. Get the ball in your outside arm so you can use your stiff arm. That's easy to correct. But to your point, Vince, the vision is huge. You have to have that. But the other part of it, there's a level of I call it second level anticipation. It's how can you read? How well do you anticipate what's happening on the second level? How well do you read the body language, the footwork of that running back or of that linebacker or safety that you're fitting off of? And he's exceptional in those regards. I mean, so this is a young man that isn't just athletic. This is a young man that has a mind for the game as well. And that's what you're talking about, that vision and that anticipation. And he's got it from the backfield, which is huge. Like inside zone is more of a first level read. Duo is a second level read. You're reading the linebackers on duo. So if you don't have second level anticipation, you're not going to be a great duo runner. And this kid has absolutely phenomenal second level reading ability. And then of course you see his ability to play with power,
strength.
Yeah, I mean he's a really impressive back. I wonder if part of his issue is he did deal with a broken hand, and I do wonder if part of his reason for maybe getting into that bad habit of putting the ball in the wrong arm had to do with that.
I could see that.
I do wonder if that was part of it. That he just kind of got used to carrying the ball with his left hand, and that's the reason he does it. But like that right there, Vince, that's outstanding athleticism. But
bounce that
to take it all the way back, why? Look at number 27. So like there's a hole right there, but he doesn't jump in that hole. Like right here, he doesn't say, hey, look at that hole. Like we're thinking, look at that hole, right? But he sees that linebacker flowing inside. So he knows I got to take this all the way out the back door. And that's what he does. And then you see it, boom, touchdown. Like that's that second level anticipation, that ability to read the second level of defense. Which is really outstanding. And that's really what separates the great athletes from the great running backs. And make no mistake, we don't grade Javian Osborne high simply because he's a great athlete. We grade him high because there's been several high, like really athletic running backs that I don't grade as high as him. But because they don't have some of those other tools that make you a great running back. Like there's no need to dance here. See the hole, boom, go and score. That's what we're talking about, Vince. This isn't a kid that is just looking to always embarrass someone and make a miss. He's trying to get to the end zone. And if he's got to make a move, he's going to make a move. But if it's a straight line to that to six, boy, he's going to take it. But look at that patience. That jump cut ability.
That was going to be my next point, was when you're running at zone and when you're running duo, you do have to be patient because you do have to allow some things to get set up. It's not like running trap where it's a quick hitter or something like that. In order to run this well, you've got to set some stuff up. And he's very patient when he gets the ball, but his 0 to 60 is
impressive. Look at this move right here. Man. He makes two distinct moves. He makes this big jump cut, but basically as soon as he lands with a jump cut, he's got to get vertical.
Right.
This is one of the more impressive runs he's had. So like there's patience. He reads the linebackers. He makes this jump cut, and then right there, boom, he sees that guy squeezing down. He knows I got to get vertical.
I mean, it's actually not bad defense. He's right there to make a play.
And he's not many people can make that move. There's a lot of running backs that can make this first move.
The first move, yes.
There's not a lot of running backs that can immediately make that jump cut and then plant and get vertical the way that he does right here, and then to not get tripped up. Like that guy hits his feet. That's what we talk about. When we talk about balance, that's it right there. That's the contact balance we talk about. And it's one of the things that makes him a really impressive back, Vince.
Look at that, just muscling his way into the end zone. I like that too.
That guy thought to make a move on him, and he just said, "Nope, I'm coming right at you."
I mean, he's not afraid of contact. A lot of these guys that have good moves, and I'm not saying they're afraid of contact, but they avoid contact. Yeah. He's not avoiding contact. When their contact needs to be made, he's making it.
Yeah, he knows, and that's what I loved about Jeremiah Love this year. It's one of the most underrated aspects of Jeremiah Love's game. Jeremiah can make you miss. Obviously, he can hurdle you. But Jeremiah Love is first going to make sure that he maximizes the yardage on a play. And if that means there's this little tight hole and you're right in it, I'm going to run you over. And you know, sometimes guys try to make too many moves and they end up losing yards. That's not Javian at this point in time. There's patience. I love that move. And then gets vertical. Very, very impressive running back. And being short sometimes can be an advantage if you have a strong upper body because they can't get low. They can't get as easily get as low on you as they can maybe a little bit of a taller, longer back. Gets on the track, sees the guy get a push, so he knows he can't get outside. Gets vertical, number 17, gets driven back, so he makes the cut early. Gets vertical, boom. Look at that. Feet are always moving. Never stops his feet, Vince. I love the leg drive this kid has. Look at him using his hands, too. Just love the leg drive. He is running with purpose.
And that's why you want the ball on the outside arm so he can use those hands more often.
Yeah. Irish Gordy Knott said smaller strike zone. I've never heard it put like that. That's a really good way of putting it. Like the strike zone for a tackler is smaller, and lower when you're going after a kid like this. I love the leg drive. Absolutely love the leg drive. You see it here too. Again, nice track. A little bit of a false step there, but that might be taught because some schools kind of do that.
Yeah,
it's a timing mechanism.
It's when in high school, coaches will coach that to force the patience.
Yeah, it's a timing mechanism.
Yeah,
like we would teach that on inside zone under center. It's like you had to make sure you open cross before you get downhill. It's a timing mechanism to set up the blocks. Otherwise, you get downhill too quickly or too late if you're not timing it up correctly. He's not used a lot in the pass game, but when he is, he's good. And I like that effort there. But he also, you see a couple times early in the screen game, he's more of a traditional running back. We don't see him being used in the pass game the way that Jeremiah Love was and the way that Aeneas Williams was, or even Keedron Young was for that matter. But I love the fight here in the pass. I like the fact that he even included it. There's some running backs that have pass blocking highlights if they wanted to, but they don't care. They just want to show the highlights of them catching the ball or running the ball. I love the fact he's got multiple pass pro highlights on here. Like, that's like, okay, there we go. That's what we're talking about. And he filled out quite a bit as a junior too, Vince.
Okay.
Like he did. He was always like kind of muscular, but he was a much thicker version as a junior.
That just comes with maturity.
Cut. What's that?
I said that just comes with maturity and,
sure.
Getting older,
Love that cut. Love that cut. They're in a slide protection. He's got to get the edge. Guy comes inside out. He's got a full head of steam. You can take that guy on if you want, but he's coming on a hard blitz. So maybe he knocks you into the quarterback. You take him out, your quarterback now has room to slide and throw the football. It's a nice ball.
I was going to say.
Yeah, it's a real nice comeback throw, by the way. Yeah, so next we're going to pull up some just real quick, Vince. I'm going to we'll just keep talking about him, but I did want to just pull up a little bit of his sophomore film because that was really fun to watch too. Actually, his sophomore year was his most productive year.
He had over 2,000 yards rushing. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah, I think they played 3 or 4 more games that season as well. There's
a lot of teams that would like to have 2,000 yards rushing as a team.
One thing to talk about him, Vince, that I didn't talk about him earlier that we can kind of mention as we're pulling this up. But one of the things that I loved about him as a junior, as a sophomore also was he had 2 200-yard games in the playoffs. He had over 700 yards in the 5 playoff games. He had 2 games of over 200 yards, 2 games with over 100 yards as well in the playoffs. And so, me, I love guys that perform in big moments.
It matters. Yeah.
And Javian certainly did that. So you can see he's not in this one. He's not quite as thick in the upper body as he was as a junior, but he's always been a well-built young man. And that's kind of the natural process of growing is you're always usually you're going to be a little thicker and stronger as a junior than you are as a sophomore. But you'll see the impressive skills. So, I mean, there's a lot to like, Vince. He's got that's an even better version of the cut we saw earlier. It's that jump cut and then bam, just that's what I talk about. That second level anticipation, like that right there is what I'm referring to. And then the ability, he's always on his feet, like he makes a cut and his feet hit the ground and he's going. Like there are those things you just love. Like he is north-south. He's making all these cuts, but he is looking to get north-south with these moves. Look at that vision. He sees that guy coming up from beside him. Those are the traits we're talking about, Vince. And then just this kid hunts the end zone. He's had over 60 rushing touchdowns the last 2 years. This is a kid that hunts the end zone. Look at that patience. Yeah, that'll make you nervous as a coach. When you see a guy kind of being patient like that in the end zone.
Yeah.
But then he's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go.
I'm going to go 98 yards here.
And like I said, no one's catching him.
No.
No one's catching him. It's a big time run right there. Big time run. But like you said, Vince, that he's patient. I love the leg drive. You see it again.
But then he just explodes out.
Yeah,
When he sees the lane, when he sees the grass, it's time to go.
You're not catching him. Yeah. You're not catching him, man. He's a big time back. You can see the blocking was a little bit better as a sophomore year as well. Like, look at that cut right there. That's what I'm talking about. Look at the patience, and then boom, watch him. He's reading the safety. He's reading the linebacker through the safety. He knows the linebacker is going to get picked up by the puller. So look at him get his eyes downfield and see that safety coming downhill, and he just cuts right behind him. That's not just about talent, Vince. That's about football IQ. That's about having a sense of, I know how to play this game. Not just, am I physically gifted, right, but do you have the mindset, the mind, the mental aptitude to be a great running back? And that's something we've seen. Like, you see some of these, even in college, great college backs go to the pros, and they're not very good at all. A lot of times because they don't have the feel for the game. They were just bigger, stronger, and faster than everybody else. And when they finally get to a level where, whether it's college or the pros, where they're no longer the biggest, fastest guy, then they are not as good. Guys like Javian Osborne project so well because it's not just about the physical tools. It's the mental tools, the feel for the game as well.
Love that.
You see what I'm saying from sophomore year? There's a lot more plays where he's just not getting touched.
Right, because it's a lot more clean blocks.
Right. But he's part of that reason because of the way he sets his blocks up and because of the way he's able to, like, look, this is vertical cut and then a bounce. See that? Vertical cut, bounce, get outside, and then now you've got to outrun the defense. He makes angles look bad.
Yeah,
because of that he gets to full speed so quickly.
It's funny because there's a lot of these kids that are taking bad angles on him.
Yeah.
Very similar to this past season with Riley Leonard. You know what I mean? People underestimated how fast he was, and so they would take these angles, and he would just outrun them to the corner. Seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, look at this cut. Look how quickly, like, oh, look at that speed. I wish he would just let it go. Just let that play go, because look at that. Oh, man, that's explosive. And then this poor kid has no chance in space. He's like, oh, my gosh, how am I going to do this? You're not going to.
You're not.
Pull a hammy, bro. Pull a hammy. Just make a hamstring injury, and you'll be good. And you don't have to explain to your mother afterwards what happened to you, you know?
Man.
Again, getting vertical, hunting the end zone. I love it. This kid hunts the end zone. And you can only do that by going north-south. You can run left-right all you want. I promise you this, when you go left-right, you're never going to score. Eventually, you got to get north, baby.
His balance is really good. That last clip showed his balance.
Yep.
Because he had to pull a spin move, which isn't really his repertoire, but it just allowed him to stay on his feet and break that tackle.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good balance.
Yep. I wish they'd throw him the ball more because he does have good hands and he's very good in space.
Well, and we didn't even really talk about it, but there was a throw to the flat that he caught with one hand while in stride.
Yep.
Which is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. He's a kid that I would love to see get the ball in space in the screen game and swings and check downs and angle routes and stuff like that. Get him in space, man, because he's dangerous in that regard. Very dangerous.
He's going to come right into your kitchen.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Just great. That's that contact balance, Vince.
Look at that.
I mean, as soon as there's no stumble. Like a lot of guys stumble. He's right into his sprinter stance.
Look at that stiff arm too. He just put that kid into the ground.
Yeah. That's impressive. That's why you keep that hand open, man. Great read, get vertical. Feet are always moving.
But then he just explodes. Like,
yes.
He makes a couple of different guys miss, and then it's just explosion out of there. Oh my gosh. That's a talent that not a lot of guys have.
There's another example of that balance you were talking about, Vince. Look at that.
Right.
Getting skinny, getting through that hole. But watch this. Not this right here. That right there. They're swiping at his ankles, and it's like, nope, sorry. It's not going to happen. Yep. Look at that. That's why you keep the ball in the outside arm. That's what I'm saying. Like, he was much better about that, because if you got the ball in the inside arm, this guy's getting on you. This guy's getting his hands on you. That's why you keep the ball in the outside arm. Oh, that poor kid. Yeah. Boom. Yeah. If he needs to make you miss, he'll make you miss. If he needs to run over you, he'll run over you. So very talented running back. But look, the efficiency here, Vince. This is what you were talking about earlier. There's just he's staying on his. He doesn't get off his track until you make him get off his track. And then he gets going. Now he's in space, and that's when he's just. I mean, he's just a nightmare to bring down in space, guys. And this is Texas football, right? I mean, that's the thing about this. This is Texas football. This isn't just like, he's playing some nobodies from nowhere. He's playing in the middle of some state that we don't respect. This is Texas football.
He does a great job on all of these screen passes, obviously, but I do love how his linemen get out in front of him too. They do block in space really well.
Yeah. Oh, there's no question. No question. He's an impressive kid. Look, here he is lead blocking. Kid put a lead blocking clip on his highlights.
He just put that kid on skates and then planted him. Oh my gosh.
Yep. Talented running back, Vince. Really impressive young man. Another bit of pass pro here. Nice cut. I love that. You know what? I don't know who his high school running back coach is, but this kid plays sound football. Like this type of cut, like he goes low through the knees. He doesn't ankle bite. Vince, look, man, you and I have been coaching football a long time. I've watched a lot of high school film as recruiting. You've coached a lot of high school football. You and I have seen some really talented athletes ankle bite when they go to cut because they don't really want that contact. He is driving through this kid's knee, inside out on this guy, doesn't roll. He goes right through the knees and takes the kids out. This is a sound football play. So smart football play. This kid's been coached well. He's definitely been coached well. There's no question about it. Look at the nice base. He doesn't talk about his feet always moving. Same thing in pass pro. He doesn't stop his feet and try to get heavy and the guy can drive him back. He's moving his feet inside out. Look at that. Watch him turn his left hip inside of this guy because he knows I got to get this guy outside. I got to invite him outside.
Yeah,
he steps down. He wants him outside, Vince.
He's using his momentum against him, which is what you have to do because you are going to be at a disadvantage from a size standpoint when you're a running back going up against a defensive end. So if he wants to go outside, you run his butt outside, and he understands that.
Look at that vision. This is impressive. Oh, goodness gracious. It's a talented running back.
That's just the explosion, man. Man is elite.
Yep. Yeah, he's a talented back. I don't see how you watch this kid and say he's not a top 100 player. Like there are literally 2 recruiting services that don't have him as a top 100 player. I don't see how you can see that. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's a big time player. Big time player. So let a couple more clips go by and then look and watch him recover. A lot of backs would fall right here, Vince. He slips and look at him. He gets right back up and he gets outside and he's on. I mean, that's impressive. That's impressive.
And then drives his legs to get another 5 yards. It's carrying guys on his back.
Yeah. I've said that I have him in my top 75 when I graded him off sophomore and junior film. He is closer to the top 35 range than he is to 75. When you look at my point system, there's like a points range from 35 to 75. Are you at the top of that points range or the bottom? He's near the top of that points range. So, hit a couple little things I want to see from him as a senior. Some of it's not his fault. He's just not used a lot in the pass game. That's like that Michael Dyer play.
How did he not go down?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
His balance, I'm telling you.
I'll bet you $20 the officials blew the whistle there and he didn't get the yards. But yeah, I love that motor. Love that motor. I want to see one thing here real quick, Vince. I want to see if I can get some sometimes they have like specific game film.
Oh yeah.
See if I can find the one from so this one right here is from the second round of the Texas playoffs.
Okay.
So again, I like showing just a couple clips here from one of the bigger games, and you're going to see what I'm talking about as far as him being not only doing that against the weaker teams. You see it all the time where running backs they'll kind of blow up the bad teams and run for a bunch of yards against bad teams, and then they play the best teams. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to do as much. Oops. Yeah. Watch that. Unblocked corner. He just runs right through him.
I mean, just runs through arm tackles. Get rid of them.
Yeah. I mean, that will that work as well in college? I don't know. You'd like to think like Leonard Moore might make this tackle, but again, he stretches him outside and then gets vertical. Like he's like, kind of and he just runs right through it. And he makes, again, this is a playoff game. He's making guys that are in a 6A football that are playoff teams. They didn't throw as many in there as I like because he had like 200 yards in that game. So anyway, Vince, that is a look at Javian Osborne.
Yeah.
The most recent commit for Notre Dame.
Yeah, his film
big
special.
Big time.
His film special. And, if you ever want to watch that again, folks, you just Google that and Huddle, HUDL, because it is fun to watch. And obviously we're not going to see him in a Notre Dame uniform for a year, but it is worth your time to go back and watch that again.
Hopefully we'll see him next spring. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we don't know if he's
but
early enrollee or whatever. But I mean, that's the goal, right? So, but yeah, great film right there. Yeah. Great film. And I'm excited to see what he can do as a senior as well. See what he's got coming back, and hopefully his team can do a little bit better. But the next thing on the agenda, Brian, is we got to talk about what's next, not only at the running back position, but recruiting in general for the 26 class. And so starting off with the running back position, I told you I had some questions for you. So I want to hit those. First of all, you said that they're going to go after 2 in this class, which I think
that's the plan,
and you laid it out really well, and I understand the reasoning for it. When you're going after a second running back or a second of anything in any position, right? What is Notre Dame? Do you know what Notre Dame is angling for? Are they angling for a guy that brings a different skill set to the table, or are they just looking for the best guy that they can at the position?
That's always first.
Okay.
First is always, let's look for the best possible player.
Okay.
But I do believe that they would like a bit of a complementary skill set.
Okay.
That doesn't have to be, because if there's a guy that's just like Javian Osborne and he's just as elite as Javian Osborne, but the other complementary backs are not nearly the player, you take the 2 studs, because at the end of the day, just keep running the same plays no matter who you put in.
Right.
I think they'd like to have somewhat of a complementary skill set, but you also don't want too complementary skill set where you have to run completely different plays when the other guy's in the field. Like Notre Dame will run a little bit more duo and counter when Jadarian Price is in the game, but they'll still run those things with Jeremiah Love.
Sure.
And they run a lot of inside zone and duo with Jeremiah, but they still run inside zone and duo with Jadarian. It's just, some variances based on the strengths of those particular runners. So you'd like to have something like that, but they would ideally like a bit of a complementary player. But I don't know that that's as much of a focus as on, let's just find the next best player that we can go after.
Okay.
And the thing for Notre Dame that works for them is they have a lot of recent history of 2 backs playing well in the same season. They can say, hey, listen, look at 2024. Jeremiah Love goes for 1,000 yards. Jadarian goes for over 700.
Right.
And wait till you see what's going to happen with them this year.
Right.
You look not that long ago, 2022. So 2 of Marcus Freeman's 3 years at Notre Dame, he's had 2 running backs go over 700 yards or more in the same season. Because you had Logan go for 800 and Audric went for 900 in 2022. And then last season, obviously, we saw both Jeremiah and Jadarian do that. And even in 2023, Vince, we didn't see one back have a lot of those extra yards because they had both Jadarian and Jeremiah getting production out of the backfield. So the 2 of them combined for over 650 yards.
Right.
Behind Audric, who rushed for 1,300. So you had a running back in 2023 who rushed for 1,300 yards and 18 touchdowns. And you had a freshman and a redshirt freshman combined for over 650 yards that season, running the football. And then they had over 140 yards combined receiving. And oh, by the way, they let Jadarian return kicks and he housed one over 90 yards against USC. It's like they've shown to running backs, listen, we don't have to do year 1, year 2, right? That'll all sort itself out. But here's the deal. If you're 2 at Notre Dame as a running back, you're going to get touches. If you're 3 at running back at Notre Dame, you're going to get touches. When you look at last season, for example, Aeneas Williams is considered the number 3 back on the team. He only rushes for 172 yards last season, but he had 219 yards rushing last season. Also had 172 receiving yards last season for Notre Dame. In 2023, as I mentioned, you had both of the 2 young backs getting opportunities, and then of course Jabron Payne is also getting opportunities. He rushes for 168 yards as the number 4 back. And also had 9 catches and 2 touchdown catches as the number 4 back because he played some third down. And then in 2022, you not only had 920 for Audric, 822 for Logan, but Chris Tyree had 444 yards that season and also caught 24 passes. So you've seen 3 running backs be a key part of the offense in each of Marcus Freeman's seasons at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
With 3 different coordinators. That's going to sell well. And that's going to let them say, hey, listen, this is why you need to be part of this. And what's crazy is Kedron Young and Aeneas Williams will be going into their junior season when this group arrives, which also helps with kind of spacing it out a little bit. And so they're going after some talented backs on the board, Vince.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Yep.
Who's on the board? What does it look like? Is there a timetable? Like, what are your thoughts on the backs that are on the board?
Well, now that you've got Javian Osborne in the class, there's no need to panic. There's no need to rush. You've got a group of guys that you really like. I don't feel like there's some guys that are sort of on the fringe just in case they don't get a guy.
Sure.
I don't think they're going to take a second back just to take a second back. They're going to want another talented player, just like last year. You know, look, when part of the issue that early in the process was they had some backs that were solid players, but they weren't difference makers, which is why Dylan McCullough really kept hunting for other running backs, even though they had 2 committed, because I want impact players. And that's why they eventually kind of moved on from Justin Thurman and Daniel Anderson and went and got Nolan James Jr. because solid backs, difference maker back, which is what Nolan James was. And then you go to this class and you've obviously got Javian Osborne and you want another impact player is ideally where they'd like to go. So some names to keep an eye on, obviously, is there's a player that, you know, some of this is there's some guys that are kind of newer on the board now that Coach Sider's here. Then there's some guys that were always top targets. So Jonas Walton from the state of Georgia is a guy that Dylan McCullough was very high on. That also Coach Sider's very high on. So they're continuing to try to get him. They had him on campus in April. They continue to make him a priority. They went down and saw him this week when they went on the road. So he's a very important part of this, of this board as well. They also got a late spring visit from DeZephan Walker. I believe he was there for the spring game. He was actually on campus the same time as Javian Osborne. That visit went very well with DeZephan Walker from Missouri. He's a 6 foot, 200-pound back, a little bigger back, really nice feet. Has some similarities with Javian Osborne, just doesn't have, in my opinion, the juice that Javian has, but he also has a little bit more size and power. He's another player on the board that Notre Dame is after. Brian Bonner is a running back from California. He is the most, quote-unquote, complimentary back on the board for Notre Dame. Okay. I don't even know that I view him as a pure running back. I think he's a slasher running back that is kind of part slot. And so if you're just looking for like a pure running back, I'm not as high on Brian Bonner as other people are as a pure running back. What I love about Brian Bonner is he is that versatile slot receiver, slasher running back that can complement your horse in the backfield. So that's what I like about him. That's a little bit, how I see Legend Bay, who plays quarterback. I don't know where. I think he's kind of lower on the pecking order right now for them. And then, of course, Coach has not given up on Messiah Mickens. He shut down his recruitment not a while ago, but then yesterday you have Messiah tweeting out a picture of him with Jaywan Sider in his home doing an in-home visit. So he's not giving up on Messiah Mickens either, who obviously committed to Penn State when Coach Sider was there. And then this past week, Vince, they also offered another running back who's a really athletic kid. He's a running back, could play some receiver, could even play some DB. A young man named Paris Melvin, who's a really talented running back as well. He's also from Texas. He's from Cy Springs in Texas. So he's another talented running back that's a little bit of an under radar kid that I like. Look, I know a lot of fans are super high on Brian Bonner, and I get it. He's a really good player. Personally, for me, I want someone from that Jonas Walton, Messiah Mickens, the DeZephan Walker group, because I really like them as running backs more. They're guys I really like. I've got to study Paris Melvin a little bit. I watched a little bit of his film. Really athletic kid. But as far as like grading him and breaking down his game, I haven't quite done that yet. I've only done so far like a cursory, just 2-minute run through of his highlights so far. So I don't really have a lot to say about him just yet. I'll hold that until I've seen more film. But I really like the other. I like Messiah Mickens. I love Jonas. I mean, let me kind of go in order. I love Jonas Walton. He'd be my ideal next guy in the class. And when I say next guy, I'm not even saying he's number 2. to Javian Osborne, I look at it as a 1A, 1B, just like I've talked a lot about in the past with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. They're both big-time backs that can play well together. I also love I like Messiah Mickens a lot. He's a very talented back. I don't think they're going to flip him from Penn State, but look, the kid keeps talking to Jaywan Sider. So usually when you, quote unquote, shut your recruitment down, you don't talk to other coaches. You don't have other coaches come in your home. Maybe it was just getting out to see a kid, but I doubt that Notre Dame is going to have Jaywan Sider use a visit day to go see a kid that's not still talking to him about maybe coming here. And then, like I said, DeZephan Walker's another kid who's a talented back that I like those guys a little bit more than Brian Bonner. But Brian Bonner's I honestly say it would not shock me if he eventually ends up becoming more of a slot than a running back, just because he's got like the thing about Brian Bonner, he's very explosive. He's very talented. He's a playmaker. But if you see him, Vince, he's not built like a running back. That's the problem. He's built more like a slot receiver that you can kind of give some outside zone and a couple plays to. He's not really built like he's not built like a running back. And I believe Notre Dame is looking for more of like a pure running back. So they like Brian Bonner a lot. I'm not as high on him as other people are, just as far as what I'm looking for. But that's where they're at. Those are some of the names on the board, Vince. They'd like to get a number 2. They're not going to back off those guys. They're not going to take a number 2 just to take a number 2. But they would like a second back in this class.
So if recruiting as a whole, what's next for recruiting as a whole for Notre Dame? Are there guys with commitment set up, commitment times, dates, that kind of fun stuff? What's next in the 26th class as a whole, not just at running back, and what we can expect kind of moving forward? Obviously not giving away. We don't like to take away anything from guys' commitments or anything like that, but just, how does the board set up here kind of moving forward? What's next, that the fans can look at?
You've got a couple players scheduled to make announcements in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Tiki Hola is going to make an announcement next week. It's basically down to Notre Dame and SMU. And Notre Dame went and saw him this week. SMU went and saw him this week. It's basically, do you want to stay closer to home or do you want to go play for a championship, is essentially what it comes down to. Some kids choose to stay close to home.
Sure, I get that.
There's definitely closing to be done there on that one. You've got Gavin Mueller, the tight end from Illinois, that is scheduled to make his commitment on May 14th. I don't know that Notre Dame is a major player there. He did visit recently, but I think there's some other guys a little higher on the board right now. That's kind of how I read that situation. Other than that, most other players have commitment dates scheduled for June or late June and July.
Summertime.
After officials.
Yeah.
But as I've said multiple times, like, guys, there's only so many guys that are going to set those commitment dates. And usually it's because of they have something in mind, or, they've got a schedule, or they want to do something with, one of the recruiting services or whatever. But there's going to be some kids who are just like, dude, I'm ready. Like Aiden Pouncey was supposed to commit in middle of May. That's what I was told when he silently committed Notre Dame during his visit. They said he decided he was going to wait till middle of May. And then, of course, next thing you know, boom, he decides to commit last weekend and get it over with. Jacoby Clapper, as of a week ago, I was told probably going to wait till he probably going to take officials. Where's he going on officials? He hasn't said yet, but he said he wants to take officials and then commit sometime later. And then he just calls the staff. I think what I was told was like Wednesday night, Thursday. And it was like, hey, I'm committing and I'm going to announce on Friday. Just get a graphic made. I mean, that's going to happen. They're going to continue to get kids like that. And not every kid cares so much about like a date. When they know, they know. Gregory Patrick didn't have a date in mind. He was driving home from his visit to Michigan, and he was like, all I can think about is Notre Dame. Let's get this over with. So there will be some of that, especially with the staff on the road the next couple weeks. But they're definitely looking to close on some guys. But I think most of these are the scheduled commitment from Tiki Hola is the one that I'd keep an eye on. And the closer you get to the officials, I think you're going to see more of these kids just say, hey, look, just play the process through, take your officials, and then make your decision afterwards. But the other thing, too, about getting some of these players like this is it also allows you to narrow your focus on, okay, if you're Jaywan Sider, we've got Javian Osborne in the class. Now let me really ramp up for this guy or two that I may like. Or, hey, we got Aiden Pouncey in the class, so let me really ramp up my attention on Joey O'Brien and Kari Adams. You've got your 2 defensive ends in Ebenezer Iwatade and Rodney Dunham. So now I can really focus my attention on, Dre Quinn and Mikhail Blade and the D tackles, Xavier Griffin Haynes and guys like that. If you're talking about linebacker, now that you've got Thomas Davis Jr. and Jacoby Clapper in the class, you can really focus your attention on Tank King and try to get him in the class. So another Texas kid that Notre Dame is after. So those are things you look at, Vince, and you're getting Bubba Frazier in the class allows you to really narrow your board at receiver and say, look, we really got to get Caden Finley. We really want Braden Robinson. Let's really focus on getting those kids in the class. And so the more kids you pick up, the more it allows you to kind of narrow your focus. And that's why you start to see some of these things happening. Once Ben Nichols and Tyler Merrill get in the class, and you can really focus your attention on let's close on Gregory Patrick. And then once he's in the class, it's like, okay, now let's close on these tackles. And that's how these things can tend to happen like that. And that's where they are with all these positions. And now that's kind of where they are a little bit on running back.
All right. So that's what's next in the 26 class. I mean, we're going to keep on rolling. And as guys jump in the class, you're going to keep getting the information here from Irish Breakdown. That's for darn sure. We got a super chat here from D Troll Hunter. Thank you very much for that, by the way. It says, I remember when this was my pipe dream at running back. Hey, look, Notre Dame's doing their thing. Okay. Notre Dame is new running back coach, same situation. I mean, they just keep on rolling. So,
Vince, this is what we said when Jawan Sider was hired. Like, look, you lost a stud in Dylan McCullough. Like, you lost a stud coach,
no doubt,
and it was going to be hard to replace him with someone on his level, and they did. They went out and got Jawan Sider. Now he's got to prove that he's an elite running back coach at Notre Dame, like Dylan did. Dylan proved it on and off the field. Dylan proved he's an elite running back coach. Yes. He proved he's an elite running back recruiter.
Absolutely.
Well, what Jawan Sider has done so far is prove that he's an elite running back recruiter. Now it's about go out and prove that you're an elite running back coach. And like
I don't think that
great move by Marcus Freeman.
I don't think we're going to get that answer though for a couple of years, right? Because
we can get that answer now. Like, look, because I get. Because you're saying, like, look, they're already pretty good. And all that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if you're an elite running back coach, then I want to see Jadarian Price be better in pass pro. That's your job to get him better in pass pro.
Sure.
I want to see Jeremiah Love make improvements to his game. I want to see the young guys. I want to see Keydron Young take that big jump as a redshirt freshman that forces you to play him. I want to see you start to get more out of Aeneas Williams. And so, like, I do think you can still see, because sometimes the hardest coaching job, Vince, is when you walk in with established players, can you get them to be better?
Yep. I get that.
And that's what I think the good coaches do is they say, hey, I'm in here. I've got this established player. You're going to listen to me and you're going to, I'm going to make you better. And that's not saying like, well, Dylan McCullough did this way and that's crap. We're going to do it my way. It's like, okay, coach laid a great foundation, but now let me help you take your game to that next level.
Right.
And I think that's got to be the focus. And like, look, Coach McCullough was going to have you focus on these things. Well, now it's my turn to get that out of you. So I do think there are aspects of it, Vince, that we can see that. And I also think part of being a great coach is, can you keep your stars hungry? Can you keep Jeremiah Love focused on the MITs, right? The most important task, the most important things in your life as a running back. That's part of being a great coach too. It's like, look, this guy doesn't need me to do this, this, and this, but he needs me to make sure that I keep him hungry and focused and locked in on being the best version of himself so he can go help us win a championship. So I think there's still a lot he can prove in that regard. But definitely what he's doing now, Vince, is he's proven that he's a big-time recruit. There's no doubt about that.
He's picking up right where things were left, in my opinion. Yep. So it just makes it that much more fun for us. And so, like I said, everybody needs to keep locked into Irish Breakdown because, as those commitments come, you're going to get the breakdown not only here, but, of course, on the boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com and at irishbreakdown.com. There's commitment stories, impact, all of that stuff in written form over on the website, and then the discussion over on the boards. And, you get a sneak peek into what might happen if you're on the boards. So you're going to get the intel as well. So you want to make sure that you get over there. But I believe, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, that is going to do it for our commitment show, talking about Javian Osborne out of Texas. He is the newest running back commitment in the 26 class, top 100 back. And folks, if you're late joining us, make sure you go back, you watch the highlights of this kid. He's elite. He's elite. You are allowed to get excited about this kid, let me tell you. And we're not just blowing smoke. I mean, look at the offer list. Look at who he is on film. it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
I'm telling
just so
you.
we're clear on something, what we're saying is just like an elite player has to come to Notre Dame and prove that he can do that at Notre Dame, Jawan Sider has to prove he can come do that at Notre Dame. Yeah. That's the point. We said when he was hired, this is a home run hire because of what he's done at other places. What we're saying is doing it in other places doesn't mean you can do it at Notre Dame with the players you have. That's what I'm saying, Brandon. So no, it's not a shot at Coach Sider. It's just like, look, you did it at Penn State. That's why you're here. Mm-hmm. But now you got to do it at Notre Dame. And we've seen coaches in the past come to Notre Dame with great reputations and not do well.
Right.
We've seen coaches come to Notre Dame with great reputations and they thrive. That's the whole point. He's just had to prove he can do it here.
Yep.
And doing it somewhere else doesn't mean that you can do it here. You've got to be able to prove you can do it here because it's a different dynamic. It's a different system. It's different players. It's different. Someone else has already laid that foundation and those type of things. So, he recruited all the kids at Penn State. That's his he's taking over room that he didn't choose anybody in that room.
Right.
And so he's got to learn that he can adapt to coach. And that's part of being an elite coach is that. So it wasn't meant to be a shot at all at Coach Sider. It's every coach when you go to a new place has to prove you can win and get the same success at that school that you did at previous stops. And not every coach does that. And so that's what we're saying. But he is showing that he can – the recruiting results, though, that he did a great job of at Penn State, he's now shown that he can do that. Now he's got to show us the coaching piece. Yep. So that's what we're saying.
Absolutely. So appreciate everybody for hanging out with us with a little bit of Irish prior to dark, or Irish breakdown prior to dark. It's not quite dark yet, but it's an evening show, so
it's after dark, and we have some folks on our show that are in Spain and other
places. There you go.
East, so it's after dark there. But
it's after dark over there.
Saturday night football, baby. That's what
right.
it is.
Like I said, when we open the show, when we come in and we're doing a Saturday night show, it's generally good things.
And he's a gap closer type of player. Yeah. But in Notre Dame specifically, you could almost say he's a gap continuer. You've established a gap at running back. This is the kind of kid that makes sure that you keep that sucker going when your current studs leave.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So everybody, hey, thanks for hanging out with us. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, share with your family and friends. Jump on the boards.irishbreakdown.com. And you're not, this is the off season. So we're driving the content. You want to make sure you're there. You want to make sure that you get it. And so
always great doing a show with you.
I was just going to say the same thing. This is I've been looking forward to this for the last couple of days, and summer is right around the corner. And so we're going to be doing some more stuff once I get released. So really looking forward to summer. Really looking forward to seeing what comes next in the 26 class. I can definitely tell you that. So for Bryan, I am Vince, and we will talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your weekend.